Hey, Mama. Welcome back to the Mom Walk Collective podcast. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Ari, and we are two moms just trying to navigate through motherhood. But today we are three. We have Jess from Springfield, Missouri on with us, and we are so excited. She's originally from San Diego. She has a 1-year-old son named Grant, and she is incredible. I'm excited for you guys to hear her story today. Jess, will you just give us a little background about you? She also
Yeah,
just
thank
had a
you
birthday
so much
too,
for
so say happy
having me.
birthday
I'm
to
so
her.
excited to be here. My birthday was yesterday. It was amazing. Woo. It was my golden birthday, 25 on the 25th. Yeah.
Woo!
So that was exciting.
Ooh,
I have a
how
1-year-old Grant, little boy. He is so adorable. And then my husband, Sam, and he's amazing, and he's a truck driver.
So cool. Wait, for your golden birthday, one, it also landed on a Saturday, which even
Yep.
better. Did you do like a whole like golden themed, like leaned into it, or what'd you do to celebrate?
I didn't really have a party or anything this year, which is very unlike me. My son's first birthday was 2 weeks ago, and so I was like kind of partied out. My husband took me out to dinner on Friday night. We went to like a steakhouse and oyster bar in Springfield.
Ooh.
It's really popular. That's like the bougie place to go in Springfield. That's what you have in the Midwest.
Oh, we like
We
a
love a
bougie
bougie
place.
gal.
Once a year, right? It's your birthday once a year, so might as well celebrate. So yeah, we did steak. We had oysters for the first time. Um,
Okay, we need to tell the story of
oh
a
my gosh, yeah.
Midwestern experience of oysters because we were chatting about this before, and I never heard somebody serve it. So maybe Jamie, you have too because you lived in Idaho for a bit.
So we have never
But
had
tell them
oysters
about your
before,
oyster
and I'm like,
experience.
I want to try something new. And so basically, there's like escargot, oysters, and caviar. I was like, let's try the oysters. And so we asked the server, like, what is like the best starter oyster? So then he like told us like one off the menu, and we're like, okay, perfect. And then he brought them out, on ice, and we're like, okay, so like, how do we eat this? Like, I know people like normally shoot it or something. And so he's like, okay, so you can either do it one of two ways. Normally you can just like take it like a shot and slurp it down. You can put like lemon juice and Tabasco, or you can take these saltine crackers and you can put it on the cracker
This
and
is
like
where
put
it
some
gets
Tabasco
weird.
on it and like eat it that way, like chew it. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to like chew it and like taste it. So I took it like a shot. My husband decided to do the saltine cracker route. He was not a fan. We'll just say that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of people eating oysters on saltine
It's funny
crackers,
she
Jamie?
says this because they're
Oh no.
mainly
Oh, no.
this sounds like really bad, but like well, the phrasing they call it like trailer park treasures or whatever, and they would do like canned oysters and like
What?
Ritz crackers and like or saltine crackers, and they called it like trailer park treasures. And there's this town that I used to go to when we were little, and we'd go hunting. Like when I'd go up with my dad, we'd go stop in this town before we like would pack into wherever we were camping to go hunt. And that was like the thing of like, oh my gosh, we're having like oysters and all this stuff. I have never, still to this day, like I cannot. Some people say I'm a picky eater. I don't think I'm a picky eater. I just don't enjoy like eating a slug. Like that's what it like in my brain. I'm like, why do I want to put this slimy thing just to like pass 5 seconds through my mouth? But some people love them. So like to each their own. If you're an oyster lover and like, you know what?
I am an oyster lover and we eat them like normal people over here, okay? I was raised in California. It is like I was telling Jess before this, I feel a little bougie, but I used to grow up going to the winery with my mom, and she would get the wine and sometimes I would too, but for the most part, I would get to eat the oysters, and you have it with like Meunier vinegar and lemon, and you take it down like that. There's no freaking saltine crackers on the plate. It is delicious.
We'll move on from this topic soon, but I have to know, does it taste fishy and gross and slimy? Like, what is the appeal?
No, it should not taste like that. It should not taste like the sea. It should, like, you should taste the meat of the oyster. So I get the texture can be like very strange to people, so totally understand that. But I also think that like the way you serve it, like it shouldn't be like doused in seawater.
I can tell.
I'm very passionate about this, guys, because I love oysters.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to a passionate story that Jess has about her postpartum.
We love bunny trails here. Also, too, it's so relevant. Everyone listening to this probably has had all of these thoughts from one of us or the other. But we want to move into thoughts that are surrounded by motherhood. So we asked Jess to come on mainly to talk about the topic of preparing for fourth trimester. And I know I talk about this on previous podcasts, and so have Ari, is I prepared for the day of labor, and that is it. And so we really wanted to dive into Jess's story to hear her experience and then what she experienced postpartum in the fourth trimester, and just her experience on how she can speak to any mom that maybe is about to be a new mom. So this would be a great episode we'd recommend to sending to a friend who really is looking to be prepared to become a new mother. So Jess, can you kind of share a little bit about getting pregnant, preparing for day of labor, but then kind of the whirlwind that came into fourth trimester?
Yeah, so when we got pregnant, it goes by so fast. It's like so crazy to think that was like over a year ago now. But basically, like, we were still living in San Diego when we got pregnant. We actually decided to leave San Diego and move to Springfield area when I was 32 weeks pregnant.
Oh, I didn't know you were that far along.
Wow.
Yeah. So we drove across the US to Springfield, and we went through this crazy like winter storm. It was like the first week of February of 2022. And we ended up having to stay at a hotel. Like it was terrifying. But then we were living with my in-laws when we moved here, for a little bit, just so we can kind of like get settled basically, and like really find the area that we wanted to like live in. So we weren't actually in Springfield when we were living with my in-laws. We were living a little bit south in Cape Fear. It's a really small town, a little lake community. And so we were living with them when Grant was born. So Sam got a job right away, and he was working, and we didn't really have like everything that we had dreamed of. Like, we didn't really make a nursery. Like, we had Grant in our room, which is like normal. Like, you have them in your room for like the first 6 months ish, normally. But we didn't actually like prepare as much as we probably would have liked to. So I think next time when we have another baby, we will do all those kinds of things. But when Grant came, he came almost a month early.
Wow.
So that was, and my mom kept telling me, oh no, like, I had all of you girls late. She had 4 girls. She's like, I had you all late. Like, he's not going to come early. Like, you're fine. And I'm like, okay. And then, yes.
Well, I drove through a winter storm and I'm living with my in-laws. So things are a little different here, ladies.
So, and having to find like medical care and stuff and figuring out, like, I wasn't working, at this point. My husband was just starting his new job, so medical care and like trying to find an OB, and you have to go to like weekly appointments at, I think, at the 32 mark or 36 mark. Going to those appointments, finding a doctor, that was like really stressful. And so I was able to like get state help, which was great. And then when Grant came and everything, my mom flew in and she stayed for 3 weeks, and she stayed at my in-laws' house with us, which was absolutely amazing. She was like working
Wow.
remotely, and if she
Wow.
wasn't working remote and her job wasn't like as flexible as it was, like I don't know what I would have done. Obviously, like my mother-in-law would have like stepped in and helped, but it's different when it's like your own mom, you know? Like it's so different.
Oh,
Like I love my
absolutely.
mother-in-law, but it's just different. Um
Yeah.
Feedings,
Mm-hmm.
they don't tell you about how often, like they tell you, okay, your baby has to feed every 2 hours. But like, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like every two
No,
hours?
there, there's so many crazy things. I think like let's go to like day of hospital. So one, he came
Yeah.
early and you are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in labor. Here we go." And these are things that you, at least for me when I was pregnant, I researched so much on labor. I was like, "All right, what is it going to be like?" Cuz it's just such an unknown experience. Like, and even to we're all almost, you're a year out, me and Ari are almost a year out. Like it feels like a fog.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't even really remember, like it's a
Mm-hmm.
crazy, I mean mine was 25 hours, so like Ari's was quick scheduled, all of that. But like the whole little time pocket is just so quick and there's so much. But then when you were in the hospital, especially like let's zone in on feeding, did you have nurses that tried to teach you to breastfeed? Did you have a lactation consultant come in? What was your hospital experience like after, like right after you had Grant? Like were they're just like left you guys kind of alone and are like, cherish the moments, all right, we're ready to discharge you? Or what were those few, 24 to 48 hours after you had him like?
So I had Grant on a Wednesday at like 4:30 in the morning. Um, and I don't think, they give you like skin to skin time. I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
blacked out. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember if I did that or not. It's really bizarre. Like, I'm like, did I have an hour? Like, I don't remember, but I remember them taking him, like, and clearing out his lungs because he didn't have, like, the initial, like, really big cry. So
Mm-hmm.
they were clearing out his lungs and stuff, and, like, that was kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also just, like, so exhausted. I was in labor for 36 hours. So I was exhausted. I did not eat for
Oh,
36 hours, so I was starving.
oof.
I was, like, so
Oh,
confused, like, not really all there. Um, but
Yeah.
Grant did not latch right away. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Mm-hmm.
nursing, I can't think of the word, is like glorified, or like people like talk about it like it's so easy. They just latch
Mm-hmm.
and you'll just know. And I'm like, so that's what I was expecting, I guess. And so it like wasn't happening. And so like I was getting frustrated. I was like, why
Mm-hmm.
isn't he latching? Like
Mm-hmm.
what's wrong? And I was always intending on nursing. That was always my goal. And so we had a lactation consultant come in, I think twice, like once during the day and then once at night. And she was really helpful. We ended up having to just try all these other feeding methods, um, which I didn't even know there were all these other feeding methods. So then just giving a bottle or nursing, it was like, because he was little and he was technically on the premature side, he didn't need to go to the NICU or anything, but there's like this little feeding
Wow.
tube. It's like this big, and there's like a little string on the end of it. It kind of looks like a rat tail, and you fill it up with like milk or colostrum formula, and you put it in their mouth, and it just like it's a tube where it just like goes down into their mouth. And so that's what ended up working the best. We fed him out of like a little spoon, a tiny little cup. Luckily, like my
Oh.
colostrum and stuff came in, so I was pumping constantly. But like
Mm.
the pumping and then the
Wow.
feeding and then cleaning the pump parts, and then like, okay, our 2 hours is
uh-huh.
up now, like now we have to do it all over
Mm-hmm.
again. And it was so
Mm.
exhausting.
Yeah.
Like I
Mm-hmm.
was I felt like a zombie. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the only way to put it.
Were you doing that all yourself, or was your mom, was Sam jumping in? Like, I remember telling Ian, I was like, your job is to clean all of the things because, like, I am feeding two babies. Like, I only have so much time. And then, like, they tell you to sleep
Yeah.
when the baby sleeps, and you're like, how? Like, I'm just
No, yeah.
feeding, and then, like, I
My
have to go to
husband was
sleep right away.
amazing. He
And then
helped
one
with
wakes up.
everything. He slept when I slept basically. Like if Grant, as long as Grant was asleep, then we would try to both sleep. Um but yeah, he helped with like all cleaning all the pump parts, drying it all. He took turns feeding Grant so I could just like lay down and rest for a little bit. So we
So
definitely like
amazing.
took turns,
Good.
and he helped so much. Like I don't know what I would have done because it I was not prepared for that, any of that. Like it was definitely a curveball. I was like, oh, he'll just latch and I'll just nurse him.
Mm.
And like I didn't know that your milk doesn't like come in
Or people
automatically.
say, like, you can.
I was leaking colostrum for I think 2 months before I even had Grant. I was
Wow.
leaking, okay?
Oh,
Like it was crazy. Yeah, it was
wow.
it was
You're a
terrible. I was
little
like,
milk
what is
station over there.
happening? Um,
That happened to one of my friends too. And I was like, how? Because literally, when I was in the hospital,
yeah.
I laugh at the things that they give you to fill up because, like, they're like teeny tiny little things. And I would get like literally one droplet. And I'm like, how is one droplet supposed to feed two babies right now? I have literally no idea.
Hmm.
We used to like take it with our pinky and like gum it to them.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you get today. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm
Well,
not kidding,
because of
but
like
like
how much I was
they got
leaking,
more
I
food than
just
that. But
figured like,
that
okay,
is.
when he comes,
Mhm.
like if I'm gonna pump or I'm gonna nurse, like it's gonna be a lot and like there's not gonna be a problem. And like so I would pump every time and it wasn't like as much as I thought it was gonna be. I was like, oh, okay.
Mm.
Okay, now what? Like, and they're like, you just gotta keep pumping, like your milk will come in eventually. And I was like, eventually? What do you mean eventually? Like, it has to come in
I think
now.
Yeah, I think that is a
Yeah.
topic right there about preparing for fourth trimester that you don't really have an understanding, like the quote unquote, like your milk coming in. Like, I remember hearing that phrase and being
Mm-hmm.
like, again, same reaction of like, what do you mean my milk comes in? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, help me understand. And I know they try to give, at least the hospital that I was at, and I was in the NICU, so like we had a little extra assistance, but they tried to show like, okay, this much is like what fills his stomach, and it's literally like a tiny spoonful. So they're trying to help me
Mm-hmm.
understand like you don't need like your milk the second they're born, but as their stomach starts to expand, they start to get bigger, is when like your milk will then come in because they know they you need to feed them more. um but that for some
Mm-hmm.
people can be 24 hours, it could be 48 hours, it could be a week until your milk comes in. And that is
Yep.
such a trippy thought because
Mm-hmm.
as a mom, you go into those like instincts of, oh my gosh, I just grew this human. Now I have to feed this human. And if my body can't connect it, like, how do I actually do that? And that's even too, like you're saying, like there's more than just a bottle. They have all these
Mm-hmm.
other new feeding techniques to make sure your kid is getting fed enough. Um, but that concept, and then no one actually prepares you for, and I'm wondering if you guys had this experience, but like your boobs getting engorged.
Hmm.
So like my milk came in, and I joke
Oh.
about this because
Oof.
I was the itty bitty titty committee. Like, never had anything, like I just had Skittles on my chest. Like, that's what it was. And I went from Skittles to looking like a porn star. Like, it was like a massive difference. And then I was in pain and I didn't know it meant you either needed to nurse or you needed to pump. And I just remember too, like you were soaking through, before, like leaking before. I then, like, my body would get so full, and either he wasn't eating that much or like whatever. But then I just started literally soaking through things. And even like the little nipple cover, whatever, the nipple pads you put in, it just was not doing it. And so even that experience, like, what was it like for you? What kind of then did you guys decide? And then we'll kind of move more into like leaving the hospital and all of that after. But what was that whole experience then where you guys kind of finally solidified, this I think is going to be the best solution for us, for our family, for feeding? But did you experience any of that of like, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? Like,
yeah, it was crazy because the lactation consultant, she brought in this paper of like basically a chart of when to feed Grant, like time slots basically, and how much to feed him. And she actually wrote down for like days after like leaving the hospital for like a week or two, like kind of having a guide of like how much he should be eating and how often, which was actually really helpful because I was like, okay, when do we increase? Like, and how much do we increase, So my milk ended up coming in and I was pumping constantly. Every time it was time for him to eat, I attempted to nurse every single time. And he wouldn't get it. He might for a minute or two and then not interested. So at that point, we were feeding him breast milk in a bottle. And we were doing that for about 3 weeks. And at the 3-week mark, he finally latched. So I tried for 3 weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really good thing to share with moms who might be a little discouraged and stuff like that of keep going. I know Kimberly, who we had on a few months ago, I think it took her 2 months, took her daughter 2 months. So even normalizing that about fourth trimester, and if breastfeeding is a desire, to continue and keep going and keep trying, because I can't imagine just even too, like your thought processes of like those 2 weeks of sometimes you can experience the baby blues, before then, if it gets something more serious or anything. So what was even that like? Like, I want to talk about, you're in a new state, you're with your in-laws, you're on this feeding journey, you're a new mom. Like, what in the fourth trimester did you wish someone would have prepared you for? And then when do you feel like things started to really just stabilize, where you guys found a routine, it got your guys' own place? Like, when did all of that kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I'm out of the fog, I feel like I have a grip? And that was a whirlwind. I
feel like in August of last year, so I think Grant would have been like 6 months then. We moved into our new place. We had our own space. Grant, we transitioned him into his own room. And I feel like that was like, okay, like we're settled now. Like we're in our own space. And I had a really good routine in at that point, and he was nursing, which was great. My husband had started a new job. He had a new job when we first moved there, and then he switched in May. So at that point, he was like pretty stable with like his current, like his job that he was working, because he had been there for a few months at that point. I feel like that's kind of like when everything finally like fell into place. So it kind of felt like a really long time. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a whirlwind is like an understatement. Like, it was a lot, especially those first 2 to 3 weeks. Like, having my mom there again, like, I don't know what I would have done. Sam, he had 1 week off when Grant was born. And we were in the hospital for Wednesday to Saturday. Saturday, we got discharged because he had some jaundice and stuff. So that was like basically half of his time that he had off. So he was really only home for a couple of days with me. So having my mom's help was huge. Wow. And then Grant not latching and stuff. Oh, there were so many tears. Like, there were tears constantly. And then just the thought of my mom having to go back to San Diego, tears. Like, just, oh my gosh. Like, I have so many episodes of just bawling like while I'm trying to feed Grant, just all of it. Yeah.
Ugh. What do you wish that somebody told you to prepare for all of that? Because it's a lot. Like, it is a lot. I can't imagine if Ian was only home for a week. I would have been livid. Like, luckily in the state of California
Oh my
and with
gosh.
his job, he was able to stay home for 3 months with me because like we had two little ones to take care of. I mean, two little ones versus one little one, it's all hard. Like, it's not a competition. But
Mm-mm.
1 week is not even,
Yeah.
and some people don't even get the 1 week. And that's mind boggling to me because you're bringing a human into this world and you don't have the support system around you because you're not only recovering from your birth, like,
Mm-hmm.
or from giving birth, you're in diapers, you're in like putting pads on for like weeks on end.
I
But then
forgot
you're
about
also
the
in charge of
whole
this little
like
one.
Yeah.
So,
wearing diaper. Like again,
Yeah.
that stuff just like blocks out of your head of like two people talk about like, oh yeah, you're gonna bleed for 6 weeks
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. Even that whole process of like just going to the bathroom and getting up and doing those things and yeah.
Oh.
the first
See,
poop.
I didn't experience that, but everyone talks about that.
See, I think like for
Oh,
me, like the
oh,
afterbirth was probably the most that I was not prepared for.
Mm.
Like all of those things. Like I was
mm-hmm.
terrified to poop. Like I was terrified.
Me
Um
too.
and the amount of pain that I was actually still in like was really bad. Um
Mm,
it was like like period cramps, it's not even comparable like at that point. Like it was
Mm.
so painful for like a
mm-mm.
week and a half. I was still in like a lot of pain. And I think I yeah.
Because your
And like
uterus
I
is
didn't
like
know that.
still
And like another thing, like
contracting. Yeah.
when I was going into labor, or not in labor, but after I had Grant in the hospital, when they like do the tummy massage situation,
Ugh.
did not know that was a thing. Like didn't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's like a lot of things that I was just like, what?
Wow. See, I'm like the weirdo. I like researched everything because I was terrified of like the poop. Because I had people that had just given birth the year
Mm-hmm.
prior that I was really close with. I was like, tell me everything. Like, I need to know the good and the bad as you're going through it. So yeah, the poop, the tummy massage. Like, if you guys don't know about this and you guys are pregnant right now, after you give birth, your uterus is still at the size of giving birth to a baby. And so it needs to contract. And I think it's normally the size of your fist, but so it takes time to contract, and so it can feel like period contractions, and so they will manually make it contract by massaging when you absolutely do not want to be
Ugh.
touched there, especially if you just had a C-section. Like, you're like, do not touch me, but they have to because it'll help you heal a little bit
It's
quicker.
so
So
crazy.
yeah.
Jess, if you could give like one thing of like to encourage a mom of like, okay, this is crazy, but you did make it out and you are here a year later, what would be the one thing of like, hey, I just want to prepare you and encourage you? Like, here are 3 things that I wish I knew or I can empower you with or whatever it would be. Like, what would those 3 things be?
I think like talking to someone maybe that you know really well, that's already experienced, like has gone through that first year of motherhood, someone that you're close with, um, maybe in this generation. I know like moms can be really helpful, but like my mom doesn't really remember 25 years ago of like what that was like, and things change
So good. So
and
real.
things change so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like lactation consultants, like in all these different
Mm-hmm.
feeding methods, like that's a great example um of just things changing over time. So I think reaching out to someone that you may know that's kind of gone through it, researching. I didn't really do a lot of research. The research I did was read What to Expect When You're Expecting. That's what I did. And I didn't even make it all the way through the book because Grant came early. So like that's literally all all I did. And I did ask my girlfriend Olivia, like she had a 2-year-old at that point, and so she told me, she helped with a lot of things, and I was really grateful for that. I always texted her, is this normal? Like, am I crazy? Is this normal? And she's like, it's totally normal.
Aww.
Yeah. So I don't know what
Shout
I
out
have done
Olivia,
without
we
her,
love you.
because just some of that stuff, she like made me feel sane. Like, and I think like knowing your mama instincts, like they do kick in eventually. Like if they don't immediately, like they will. And like following your gut, I think is like really important. There was a couple times where Grant like wasn't eating, and I was like, okay, like what's going on? Like there has to be something wrong, and like just kind of calling the doctor and like figuring those kinds of things out. And then really like, you got this. Like you can do it. Like you will get through it. It's hard. It's hard shit. Like it is,
It is.
Yeah.
No, it's so good.
You have no
like
idea.
People can tell you all
until
day long, but until you're into it, like, that's when you'll be like, oh, okay, this is maybe what they were talking about. Okay, I get it now.
And I think what's so hard, and we'll kind of end on this, is the things that are out there that say you don't have any friends, say you don't have any of this type of stuff. Like this is obviously like why we have the collective. And if you're pregnant, find a walk near you, because if you don't have someone around you, the first one, maybe you're not close with, your mom or any other women, you're going to go to YouTube. And YouTube, you're going to get the mommy blogger who probably is not going to show you when she's in tears or all the hard things. She's going to maybe mention it, but it's such a vulnerable place for them that it's very rare you're going to find a full honest experience of the 4th trimester. And so we're just really thankful for people like you, Jess. Like just giving, no, for real. Like this is really what and why we desire to get you guys all on to share your stories, because in this whole thing, like when I started the collective, I was like, oh my gosh, I need mom friends, because too, you might have a mom who might have a completely different experience than you. Like I encourage anyone who's listening to this who may have moved into their in-laws or moved to a new state right before giving birth, like reach out to Jess. We'll have her plug all of her stuff, because that too is going to set you up for such a different experience of like new medical system, new just how do I go to the grocery store? What grocery store do I actually like? Like what's the weather like? Just simple things that are new stressors on top of the stressors of becoming a mother. And we want to give that to you. So Jess, we just thank you so much for coming on and just talking about the vulnerability of becoming a mom, stepping into 4th trimester, the things that you learned, the things that were like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know. And just being honest about what it was like. We can now say Jess is an amazing, amazing host for the ambassadors in Springfield. We just are so lucky to have her a part of the collective, because she's the real deal, and she's going to encourage you and empower you, but also walk with you through those hard trials. So if you're in Missouri, we highly recommend going to her walks. Jess, can you plug your personal Insta as well as your walk Insta?
Yeah, so my personal Insta is Jessica Lauren Pond. That's my full name. And then the walk Insta is the momwalkco.springfield.
Amazing. We highly recommend you guys reach out to her if this connected. I'm going to speak on your behalf, but I know would probably love to connect.
Yes, absolutely. Send me a DM. Yes. Let's get coffee. Perfect. Let's go walk.
Right into the DMs and then grab a coffee and go on a walk.
We're so thankful for all you guys listening. If you guys could subscribe, comment, that helps us get this resource out to more and more moms. If you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go to a walk, I just knew there was a podcast. We host, as of right now, we have over 100 and 60 walks across the US and Canada, or we just get moms together to go for a walk and have these conversations in person. They're twice a month. So go to the momwalkcollective.com, go to the walk finder, type in your zip code, and go to a walk near you. If there isn't one near you, feel free to fill out the ambassador form. And the first of every month, we will get out to you to start the application process, or start the onboarding process of the possibility of becoming an ambassador. Other than that, if you're local to California, and specifically Southern California, we have a mother's market coming up April 22nd. We would love to meet you, and we are having over 20 brands specifically catered towards motherhood there to simplify your life. So we'd love for you guys to shop around at that. Ari, anything else want to close us out?
Just want to say thank you so much, Jess. I can't wait to have you back on the podcast to hear more. We kind of like talked about the breastfeeding and talked about postpartum, and I'm excited to hear after the first year too how your motherhood journey continues. So we love you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being on
Love
here,
you,
Jess, and we
Mama.
will talk to you soon.